For most of my life, I've been the family's punchline. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I walk with a limp. My brother turned it into a running joke. The kind you can't escape at family dinners, weddings, or even in public. And everyone laughed along. Until I made sure the whole world saw what I'd been living with. That's the day my brother's pride died. And I was the one holding the match. My name is Harper, and I'm 25 years old. I've lived my whole life carrying the quiet weight of my disability. A limp from an accident when I was 8. A car crash that should have taken my life but left me with one leg weaker than the other. I learned to adapt, to work harder, to smile through the awkward stares from strangers. But nothing cut as deep as the cruelty that came from my own brother. It started as little digs when we were kids. But over the years, those digs grew teeth. He turned my limp into a punchline, a family joke that everyone just tolerated. Even last Thanksgiving, while passing the mashed potatoes, he smirked and said, "Careful, Harp. Don't trip on the way back to your chair. We can't afford a floor repair." The table laughed. I laughed too. But only because I'd learned that showing the hurt made it worse. But that day, the day everything changed, wasn't Thanksgiving. It was a warm Saturday in June, during a backyard barbecue my brother hosted. The smell of grilled burgers hung in the air, kids ran through sprinklers, and the adults sipped beer on the patio. I was sitting on a folding chair near the corner, chatting with one of our cousins, when I heard my name. Loud. "Hey everyone! You've got to see this. Harp's doing her famous walk." He didn't even look at me when he said it. He just exaggerated a limp, dragging his foot, hunching over like a cartoon character. The crowd erupted in laughter. My cousins, their spouses, even my own sister. But this time, I didn't laugh. I didn't smile. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. "That's enough," I said, my voice low but shaking with years of swallowed humiliation. He smirked, as if I'd just proven his point. "Oh, come on, Harp, lighten up. It's just a joke." The air around me felt heavier. My cousin shifted uncomfortably. The kids went quiet. And in that moment, I realized something important. My brother wasn't going to stop until I made him stop. And that was the exact second I decided. I would take away the one thing he valued most, his pride. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you've subscribed and dropped a comment below. What would you have done in my place? Trust me, the next part changes everything. If you asked anyone in our hometown, they'd say my brother, Grant Lynn, was the golden child. He had the charm, the quick wit, the way of making everyone feel like they were in on some private joke. People loved him. I loved him once too. When we were young, I thought his teasing was just sibling rivalry. I thought that's what brothers did. They picked on you because they cared. But somewhere between childhood and adulthood, that teasing sharpened into something cruel. I'll never forget being 13 and limping into the school gym for a talent show. Grant was in the bleachers with his friends. As I crossed the floor, one of them whispered something and they all started laughing. Later, I found out Grant had bet them I'd trip before reaching center stage. It wasn't just the public moments. Home, it was constant. Mimicking my walk when our parents weren't looking. Calling me Hop instead of Harper. Making clicking noises with his tongue every time I stood up, like a coach urging on a racehorse. And the worst part, our parents never stopped him. Mom would sigh and say, "Oh, Harper, you know he's just playing around." Dad would chuckle and change the subject. When I was in my 20s and got my first job, I thought maybe the distance would help. But family events always pulled me back into his orbit. Birthdays, holidays, weddings, where he could hold court with his little audience. And they laughed. Every time. The real crack in our relationship came 3 years ago, after our mother's funeral. I was standing by the gravesite, my hands trembling from both grief and the cold wind, when Grant leaned in and whispered, "Careful not to fall in, Harp." I stared at him in disbelief. The open grave right there, our mother's coffin being lowered. I wanted to scream, to hit him, to tell everyone what he'd just said. But I stayed quiet. Because that's what I'd always done. But the truth is, every insult, every joke, every smirk was stacking up like kindling. All it needed was one spark. That backyard barbecue in July. That was the match. I spent the days after it replaying his limp, his smirk, the sound of their laughter. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized. Grant didn't just take my dignity. He built his own self-worth on my humiliation. And I was about to tear that foundation apart. Stick with me because in the next moment, I'll tell you about the exact moment his cruelty crossed the line, and how that gave me the perfect opening to turn the tables. And hey, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the payback. But of course he didn't stop. He never stopped. Grant took a dramatic step forward, beer in hand, and began to mimic my walk. Exaggerated, jerky, like some bad parody of a drunk scarecrow. He swung his arms wildly, puffed out his chest, and wobbled across the patio. The first laugh came from his friend Tyler. Then his wife, Jenna, snorted into her wine glass. Soon the whole table was shaking with laughter. "Oh, come on, Harp, show him how it's really done," Grant called, turning to me with that smug grin. "You've been training for years, right?" The heat rose up my neck, my pulse thudding in my ears. I could feel every pair of eyes on me, waiting for my reaction, waiting for me to be a good sport. I managed a tight smile, but inside I was crumbling. This wasn't just a bad joke. This was my brother telling the world, this is all she is. This is all she'll ever be. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, he said it. "Careful though," he smirked, lowering his voice just enough that the people closest would hear, which of course meant everyone would hear. "Don't trip and break the other hip. Dad's Medicare can't handle it." There was a burst of laughter, loud, genuine at my expense. My own father chuckled, not in malice, but in that, "oh, he's just being silly" way. And that hurt most of all. Because if your own family won't defend you, who will? I excused myself, muttering something about checking on the desserts inside. But once I stepped into the quiet of the kitchen, I gripped the counter so hard my knuckles whitened. The tears came hot and fast. Years of humiliation condensed into that one moment. My brother's voice replayed in my head like a cruel echo. The laughter, the looks, the expectation that I'd take it like always. I could have stayed in that kitchen, wiping my face, waiting until it was safe to come back out. I could have let it go like I always did. But something shifted that night. I realized this wasn't just about me being hurt. This was about power. Every time I stayed silent, I handed him a little more control over how the world saw me. And I was done giving him that. I walked back outside, but I didn't join the table. I smiled politely, said I wasn't feeling well, and slipped away into the night. I don't think anyone even noticed I'd gone. That drive home was the quietest, coldest I'd ever taken. My hands gripped the steering wheel, my mind a whirl of images. Grant's smirk, the bobbing heads of people laughing, my father's small chuckle. By the time I reached my apartment, the tears had dried. What replaced them wasn't sadness anymore. It was something sharper. Resolve. Lying in bed that night, I thought about all the times Grant had used my disability as entertainment. The school talent show, the graveside whisper, the limp walk at every holiday party. I remembered the way people would laugh, not because they hated me but because they thought it was harmless fun. They didn't see the way I went home afterward and sat in the dark, wondering if I'd ever just be Harper, and not Harper the Limp. I thought about the way he prided himself on being the funny one, the life of the party, the one who could charm anyone. That was his currency, and I was going to bankrupt him. I wasn't going to yell or throw things or beg him to stop. No, I was going to take away the one thing he valued most, his pride. And when I was done, he'd never make me or anyone the butt of his joke again. If you've ever had someone in your life who thought your pain was funny, stick around. Because in the next moment, I'll tell you exactly how I began planning a revenge that hit my brother where it hurt most. And if you're rooting for me, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was crying, I was past crying. I was wired, restless, and coldly awake, replaying every humiliation my brother had dealt me like a highlight reel I couldn't turn off. And then it hit me. Grant had always thought he could humiliate me because I wouldn't fight back. Because I was soft. Because I'd never risked confrontation. But I didn't need to confront him to win. I just needed to show the world the truth about him, the side he hid behind his charming, easygoing act. Grant's weakness wasn't alcohol or gambling or anything like that. It was image. He had built his entire identity on being the fun guy. The one who could walk into any room and have people eating out of his hand within minutes. That's why people laughed at his jokes about me. They didn't think he was cruel. They thought he was harmlessly funny. And that was my in. Because if I could make people see the cruelty for what it really was, it would shatter the illusion he'd spent years creating. I started small. I went through old family videos, social media clips, even phone recordings I didn't remember saving. And sure enough, there he was. Grant doing his exaggerated Harper walk at Thanksgiving 2015. Grant making old man hip jokes at a New Year's Eve party in 2017. Grant narrating my movements like a sports commentator at Dad's retirement dinner. Watching those videos was like swallowing glass. But they were proof, undeniable, unedited proof, of who he really was when he thought the world was laughing with him. Around this time I got a text from Melissa, my cousin. She'd been at Dad's birthday party, and though she hadn't said anything in the moment, she messaged me later. Harper. That thing Grant did was disgusting. I'm sorry I didn't speak up. If you ever want me to back you up, I will. I hadn't planned on involving anyone else, but Melissa was different. She'd always had a quiet streak of loyalty in her. And more importantly, she had a massive Instagram following thanks to her small business. I told her my plan. She didn't even hesitate. Send me the videos, she said. I'll make sure they get seen. Melissa suggested we frame the videos as a kind of before and after, showing Grant's mockery alongside moments of me quietly living my life. The contrast would make his cruelty obvious without me having to narrate a single word. So I filmed myself doing ordinary things. Making tea, reading on the porch, walking my dog. I didn't hide my limp. I let the cane be visible when I needed it. But I kept my expression warm, kind. The opposite of the caricature Grant had painted. We overlaid the clips with captions like, "This is my real walk. This is my real life. And here's my brother turning my pain into a joke." I'll admit, my stomach churned thinking about the fallout. This wasn't just a petty argument. This was years of family dynamics being ripped open for everyone to see. But I also knew one thing. If I didn't do it now, I'd spend the rest of my life regretting it. And honestly, I was tired of living small so other people could live loud. We decided to post everything during Grant's favorite time of year, the week of his annual guys trip, when he'd flood his Facebook and Instagram with pictures of him and his buddies on boats, drinking and laughing. His followers were always watching then, commenting, sharing. It meant when Melissa posted the video compilation on her account, tagging him by name, the audience would already be tuned into his every move. And when they saw it, they wouldn't be laughing with him anymore. The night before Melissa posted, I sat on my couch in the quiet. My phone buzzed with her message. Tomorrow. Noon. I thought about all the years I'd kept my head down, hoping the teasing would stop on its own. I thought about the little girl I'd once been, learning to walk again after my first surgery, overhearing Grant tell a neighbor, "She walks like a penguin now." I whispered out loud, to her, to me, to the person I had become. This time we're walking into the fight. Before we move on, I want to know, Have you ever stayed silent for too long, then finally decided to speak up? Tell me in the comments. And if you're ready to see exactly how my brother's pride came crashing down, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the ending. Melissa posted the video at exactly noon. The first 30 minutes were quiet. A few likes, some heart emojis, a couple of "wait, what?" comments. I tried not to refresh my phone, but my hands had a mind of their own. By the 1 hour mark, it was like a dam had burst. Hundreds of comments, dozens of shares, people tagging their friends. And the tone? Oh, the tone was different this time. I watched, almost in disbelief, as strangers and acquaintances alike called him out. Wow, this isn't funny at all. It's cruel. Can't believe you did this to your own sister. Making fun of someone's disability. Not a good look, man. Some were even from his own friends, the ones who'd laughed the loudest in the past. And now, they were distancing themselves. By 3 p.m. Grant called me. Not texted. Oh. I let it ring twice before I answered, keeping my voice calm. You need to tell Melissa to take that down, he snapped, skipping over even a fake hello. Why? I asked, feigning innocence. It's just your jokes, your words, your movements. Nothing fake about it. It's out of context, he barked. People are blowing it out of proportion. You're ruining my reputation. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't apologize. Instead I said, "No, Grant. You ruined it yourself." All I did was hold up the mirror. And then I hung up. Over the next 48 hours, the video spread like wildfire. Melissa's followers reposted it. Disability advocacy pages shared it. Local groups picked it up. Grant stopped posting entirely. His boat trip photos vanished. His normally buzzing comment sections went silent. Even Dad, who'd always excused him with a "that's just Grant being Grant," called to say he was disappointed in him. And me. For the first time in years I felt tall. Not because my limp disappeared, but because I wasn't shrinking to make him comfortable anymore. The real turning point came 2 weeks later. Grant had been nominated for some Community Ambassador Award through his job, an honor that required, ironically, a reputation for kindness and integrity. Melissa sent me the screenshot when the nomination was quietly withdrawn. No public statement. No announcement. Just a silent removal from the list. And Grant, he never brought it up. But the storm in his eyes every time we crossed paths said it all. People think revenge is about shouting the loudest. It's not. It's about taking away the one thing the other person values most. And doing it without losing yourself in the process. Grant wanted an audience for his jokes. Now, when he walks into a room, people remember the video. The laughter is gone. The spotlight is gone. And so is the power he once had over me. Some people will never see their cruelty until they feel its weight on their own shoulders. My brother thought my limp made me weak. Now, it's the reason his voice isn't as loud. His laughter isn't as confident, and his audience is gone. I didn't just take back my dignity. I took back the space in the room that was always mine to begin with. And I'm never giving it up again. I don't know if he'll ever apologize. But here's the truth. I don't need him to anymore. Because I finally stopped playing the role he wrote for me. And I'm writing my own ending now. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking this journey with me. If you've ever taken back your power from someone who tried to humiliate you, share your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more stories of betrayal, justice, and powerful comebacks, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next.